Hello to all of YouTube. So today I want to talk a little bit about Monaco and my day trip there yesterday. Now, for starters, Monaco, at least for me, always felt like some kind of a dreamland, some small little world that few got to see. And so when I knew I was going to be close enough, it's about, turns out, a 4-hour drive from where I am now. When I knew I was going to be close enough, I wanted to make that trip happen. So, story time goes like this.
Good morning, Lazak.
We started day at about 7:40 in the morning. We'd meant to leave the house by 7. And that didn't happen because that never does. And there are a couple things that this drive taught me. So one of the first things about going to Monaco is that the drive is potentially half of the experience in and of itself. Driving on the border of the Mediterranean through the south of France is gorgeous. It is windy. In July it is very hot. And in the morning there are a lot of cyclists. So with all of that being said, that leads me to my first question here. I've noticed lately that road biking, I suppose it's called, has becoming more, as a sport and as an activity, is picking up more and more popularity, which I first and foremost think is awesome. But as someone who grew up just riding on any old mountain bike, I, from my humble opinion, seem to notice this certain attitude among these cyclists. And I bring this up now because the day started off with a certain couple of adventures that all had to do with these bicyclists. I'll show you a clip now that kind of lets you see into my next question and my point.
This guy's got some balls in front of us.
Dangereux.
Oh!
Le vélo. Hey papy, un peu à droite. Et au milieu.
Oh my gosh.
C'est dangereux.
What?
So as you can see, there's a little bit of a confusion between the driver of the vehicle and the bicyclist on the road, the cyclist. And it left me thinking, why would you as a cyclist wave a vehicle into the oncoming road around a turn? Because you're the smaller being on the road. Would that not potentially put you in a dangerous position? And yet that happened time and time again, but I just don't get why. I'm just wondering. I'm really wondering. So let me know in the comments below if you are a cyclist of that sort and what kind of, is there an etiquette that us drivers need to know? I've always understood it that cyclists stay on the side of the road, maybe not like hug the curb completely, but that you don't ride 3 deep taking up an entire lane. Me? I don't know. So that was fun. That adds a lot, that adds a certain twist to all of the twists and turns on the road to Monaco. So if you do decide to drive to Monaco one day, I will say, if it's in the summertime especially, make sure your vehicle has air conditioning. I personally was not aware that vehicles anytime within the past 2 decades were ever manufactured without air conditioning, especially Audis, them being what I believe is known as a nicer brand. So don't do that, because I'll tell you what, you can't really appreciate things when you're melting. But Monaco itself was surprisingly not as different as I thought it was going to be. I will say a day trip I think was the perfect amount. If you're not someone who has a particular passion there, such as yachts or casinos or any kind of big baller attitude, I don't know if Monaco is worth more than anything than a day trip, but to go there and to see all the Rolls Royces and the Benz and the cars that are as big as tanks and the gorgeous yachts and the castles and the history and Grace Kelly's grave and the cathedrals and the palace, then yes, I definitely believe it's worth a day trip. If you are a car aficionado and you happen to be in the area, I would say go ahead and make a day trip there. Definitely saw the biggest variety of cars that I've ever seen before. It was something else to see. And while you're checking out cars, check out their license plates, because if you're anything of a travel geek like I am, I find it so fascinating to see where everyone was from. We saw, of course, you saw Italy and Spain and France, right? But you also saw Lithuania, Slovakia, Slovenia, Russia, plenty of German cars, Belgium. There may have even been 1 or 2 where I was like, I don't even know. Your license plate doesn't even make sense to me. You must be special. If you want to feel extra fancy, dress a little nicer than you may normally, depending on who you are. There's something about just walking where you know Grace Kelly has walked that makes you want to hold your head a little higher and keep your back a little straighter and feel a little extra classy, so I wore a dress. Are you fancy, huh? And then I will add that it was a slight more touristic than I had expected, but I guess you kind of have to take that with a grain of salt anywhere you go. And I don't know if it's just the way things are and we have to accept that, or if it's a shame. One last thing is that unless you've heard about and are looking forward to any certain restaurant there, I'm basically just picnicking because the prices are quite high and there are plenty of beaches and coastlines and gorgeous vistas where you can stop and enjoy a nice picnic. So that's what we did. And take advantage of their bus system. They have a pretty great circuit for their buses that actually you can just ride for a couple blocks and get another little scenic route of things. So we did that, and that actually was spurred by the fact that parking turned out to be quite a challenge, and so we stole the first spot we could find and jumped on one of the buses, and that worked out flawlessly. It made the process much more smooth and enjoyable. So I hope you enjoyed today's video. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't, and I will see you in my next video.
Popping on that orange color with my finger to get the highest amount of pigmentation I can, keeping that just on the lid.